Welcome back to our final Oceans Live broadcast of Capitol Hill Ocean Week 2013. I'm Matt Dozier with NOAA's Office of National Marine Sanctuaries. It's been a jam-packed week here at the beautiful museum in Washington, D.C. We've heard from some excellent speakers on a wide range of ocean issues, and I'm joined now by another excellent speaker, Michael Cohen from the Santa Barbara Adventure Company. Michael,
hi, how are you?
Good, thanks.
Great,
Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Michael founded the Adventure Company in 1998 with the goal of sharing the beauty of his hometown with others. Michael, so my first question is, on our program yesterday, we had Mike McCartney from the Hawaii Tourism Authority talking to us about this idea of balance. So, you know, the concept that you don't have to destroy the environment to be able to make a living from it.
That's right.
How does this factor into your philosophy?
That's a good question. You know, for me, our goal is to be sustainable and to try to be educational. I've been a covert environmentalist from the day one, although I'm a tour operator and a small business owner. We really want people to connect with nature and to have a deep love for it. If you love something, if you have a bordering on a religious experience at, say, the Channel Islands National Park, doing sea cave kayaking or surfing, there's something that changes in you where you want to make measures to protect it in the future. In particular, we're trying to educate a lot of kids, so we're taking them out to do sea kayaking or natural history hikes, or actually having them taste kelp or taste a prickly pear from a place where it's appropriate to take it. And that is another way where they can connect and really, hey, that's fun, that's cool. So, but to answer your question, how to love it and protect it, you have to use your staff to guide in a careful way. We like to protect, meaning that we follow the standards of the national park and we try to follow the guidelines of the sanctuary, so we're not allowing our guests to harass marine life. Sure. You know, we oftentimes are asking other public people who aren't on our tours and saying, hey, would you, you're actually harassing this sea lion right now. Would you mind not stomping on the rocks? So I think you're going to find that guides and outfitters are real stewards, and they're trying to protect those resources. Yeah.
Sure. In your career, have you ever felt a tension between the regulations, you can't do this, you can't do that, and wanting to protect the resource, and wanting to show people a good time, get people close to the nature that you're showing them? Is there, have you ever had a conflict there at all, or is that
Yeah, I think people without, you'll go out and see folks just doing, I call it vacation mind, and they'll just do stupid stuff. And oftentimes it's hurting themselves. They'll, for some reason, think it's okay to, throw the big rock off the cliff or get too close to the edge. I think something is they're feeling like they're at the beaches in Hawaii and they just are going to do whatever. So again, an advocate for a guided situation is having those people, although no one likes to be nannied, and micromanaged. Right. You want to try to do that in a tactful way and help them along without them getting hurt. And try to protect the resource. Have I seen tension between the two? For me, the park, has some strong regulations, and we meet all of those requirements. So that's a competitive situation as well. So if you're not good, someone else is going to come along and take that permit.
Right.
So you're kind of forced. You're driven by the park and the Conservancy to do a great job. But at the same time, you're really trying to interview the public. Interview the public? Sorry. Educate the public.
Right, absolutely.
You're interviewing me.
I'm interviewing you, right. Another thing we've heard a number of people say throughout the week is there's too much doom and gloom around the ocean. We need more success stories. What role can a small business like yours play in advancing this conversation about ocean conservation?
I really think that with the advent of social media, that is such a wonderful platform for us to use to further conservation, education, and excitement in a lot of ways. Sure. People oftentimes are citing their experience at the channel on my tours. We have a very high ranking on TripAdvisor. We're ranked #1 out of 118 operations or attractions, which is really great.
Sure.
The reason we are is because people are sincerely coming across and saying, wow, that was the highlight of my experience. That was a 5-star experience.
Yeah.
And we're doing that in our service. We're doing that by, showing them something they normally don't see. But the reality is we're just exposing them to these magical places. And then that becomes the bond for their family. I mean, Junior did it, Grandma did it, and they had a great time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So you talked earlier about the Channel Islands National Marine Sanctuary, which is right in your backyard. Can you tell us about how you're involved with the sanctuary?
Yeah, so I'm on the Channel Islands National Marine Sanctuary Advisory Council. And that is a position, it's a board that's comprised of many interests, including science, commercial fishermen, recreation fishermen, business, tourism. It's got a really broad and diverse body of members. And so I'm involved in that panel, and we are using that as a forum, really, with our outlets to try to further the goals and mission of the Conservancy. So my constituency is tourism, people who are on my trips. I use that to educate people about the sanctuary. Also, I'm involved with the tourism board, which is a broader level, talking to all the hotel owners and all of the different players in Santa Barbara who are involved. So yeah, that's my involvement with the sanctuary. I'm impressed with the depth of people that are coming. They also have Native American interests on there. And like I said before, science is heavily represented.
Right, so kind of giving everyone a seat at the table.
That's right, a voice, a very good voice. And it's a bureaucratic organization, so it can be hard to accomplish anything. But I think everyone's goals are very similar in that we're looking for protection. We're trying to conserve, protect, and further the goals of the sanctuary.
Absolutely.
That's great.
So also with us today is Tim Fitzgerald. He's the manager of the Environmental Defense Fund's Sustainable Seafood Program and a senior member of EDF's National Policy Team, as well as an advisor to SeaWeb's Kid Safe Seafood campaign and the Atlantic States Marine Fisheries Commission Coastal Sharks Board. Tim, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So Tim, we're going to talk about fishing now. Overfishing is this really big, controversial, global issue. How do you even begin to address something on this kind of scale?
Well, I think there were a number of really great ideas put forward at the Next Generation of Fishing panel yesterday, and I think one of the really good pieces of good news that we heard from the panelists yesterday was that in the U.S. we're starting to get a lot of things right. And for many of the commercial fisheries, the tools that the federal and the regional and state governments have put in place are really starting to work with annual catch limits and new management tools, et cetera. So now that we're starting to get a really good handle on how to manage fisheries sustainably here in the U.S., we can take those ideas and those examples and start to export them to other parts of the world.
Sure, sure. So one thing that gets talked about a lot, and by your organization as well as others, is catch shares. And I feel like it's one of those buzzwords that people use, and I don't know that everybody knows what it means. Can you explain a little bit about what catch shares are really about?
Absolutely. And to your point, I think a lot of times people sometimes get the mistaken impression that catch shares are new, or that they've only been around for a couple of years, or that they're the tool of one political administration or the other. And the fact is that as a fisheries management tool, they've been around for decades, and they really rely on things that we need for all good fisheries management, which is good science and good information. The additional thing that catch shares do is, rather than just giving a catch limit to a whole fishery and hoping that fishery stays within that limit, catch shares introduce an additional degree of accountability and give specific allocations or specific quotas to individual fishermen or vessels or permit owners, et cetera. And so by introducing that additional accountability, you're vesting those fishermen or boats or companies with conserving the resource, and as long as they fish responsibly, their share of the quota will grow as fish populations grow.
Sure.
So the system is really set up in a way to reward conservation-oriented behavior.
Absolutely. Another issue that we've heard, I think, more about in recent years, months, is seafood fraud. Seafood showing up in restaurants that's either mislabeled, incorrectly identified by the restaurant or by, the provider. Why should anyone really care where their seafood is coming from exactly?
It's a great question. I think it gets to the nature of the U.S. seafood market, which I think a lot of people aren't terribly familiar with. And we heard yesterday that more than 90% of our seafood is imported. And a lot of that is from countries that don't have the same standards, either in managing their fisheries or managing their fish farming the way that the U.S. does. So I think that makes people pause a little bit when they realize that most of their fish is not from here. And they want to support local fishermen. They want to support local fish farms. And when you add on top of that that they're spending money on something that may not actually be true, that gets people a little fired up.
Sure.
On top of it. So there needs to be better labeling. There needs to be better information transfer. The seafood market is very complicated. So anything that we can do to make sure consumers and businesses are getting the things that they think they're paying for is really critical.
Do you think that's realistic then to accurately track every piece of seafood that's making it from the ocean to the store to our tables?
We can definitely do a better job than we're doing now, and,
Sure.
and it doesn't necessarily have to be having a tag in every single fish that comes onto the dock. And there are ways of doing traceability and truth in labeling that wouldn't be overly burdensome to a majority of seafood companies, and I think that's the point, is coming up with solutions that can apply to a large amount of the seafood, but don't cause the whole seafood industry to kind of push back on the regulations and not want to do this additional information transfer technology or solutions.
Sure. I have one question for both of you now. So you're coming to us both from pretty different backgrounds, different fields, different sides of even the ocean conservation coin, and I wanted to know what brings each of you to Chow. I mean, why is Chow important to you? I'll start with you, Michael.
I just really believe in the fact that if we continue to go down this path of using our ocean without management, education, and conservation, we are going to be in a bad. We're already seeing the effects of global climate change. So if we don't really try to make a difference, there's not going to be these beautiful places for us to go to have these people connect with nature. The fisheries, I can't speak for fisheries, but the fisheries will start to get diminished. So that's my goal here, is to actually try to make a change.
Yeah, absolutely. What about you, Tim?
Believe it or not, this is actually my first Chow, even though I've been doing this professionally for about 10 years, and it's just wonderful to see the different stakeholders in the same room, not only talking about the same issues, but in large part being very much on the same page about climate change, ocean acidification, coastal restoration, seafood traceability, overfishing, all these things. So that was really encouraging, and that just makes me want to participate all the more at next year's event.
Absolutely. Well, thank you both for joining us here on the show. It's been a pleasure having you.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, that's it for us here at Oceans Live. Thank you for joining us at Capitol Hill Ocean Week 2013.